The Tragedy of X, Ellery Queen. Scene 5, Act 1. General room in a car barn, Friday, September 4th, 7:30 p.m. Inspector Thumb proceeded directly to the general room in the barn. He entered upon a grotesque scene, men and women standing, sitting, squirming, chattering, expressing impatience, fear, discomfort. The inspector grinned at one of the detectives in charge and stamped loudly for attention. There was a concerted rush in his direction. They panted and objected, protested, questioned, swore. "Stand back," roared Thumb in his best parade voice. "Now, get this straight. No complaints, no suggestions, no excuses. The quieter you people are, the sooner you'll get out of here. Miss Jewett, I want you first. Did you see anyone put anything into the pocket of the man who was killed? I mean, while he was standing in front of you?" "I was talking with my escort," said the girl, moistening her lips, "and it was pretty hot," and Thumb snarled. "Answered the question, yes or no?" "No. No, sir." "If anyone had slipped something into that pocket, would you have noticed?" "I don't think so. My friend and I were talking." Thumb turned abruptly to the heavy-set man, graying with a harsh, almost malevolent face, who had pulled Longstreet's arm when he had collapsed in the car. He was, he said, Robert Clarkson, bookkeeper. No, he had noticed nothing, despite the fact that he had been standing next to Longstreet. Yes, on his left side, Clarkson's heavy face lost its evil shading. He paled suddenly with apprehension, and his loose mouth worked comically. The middle-aged Italian Antonio Fontana, a swarthy, thickly mustached man who said he was a barber returning from work, could add nothing to what had already been said. He had been reading an Italian newspaper, Tu Popolo Romano, during the entire trip. The conductor questioned next revealed himself as Charles Wood, number 2101, in the employ of the 3rd Avenue Railways for 5 years. He was a tall, burly, red-haired man of perhaps 50. He had seen the face of the dead man, he said, and remembered his having got on the car one of a party of people who boarded at 8th Avenue. This man, he said, had paid fares for 10 people out of a dollar bill. "Did you notice anything funny when this bunch got on, Wood?" "Nope, the car was full, and I had all I could do to close the doors and collect fares." "Ever see this man on your car before?" "Yep, he's been getting on pretty often at that time of day. Been a regular customer for years." "Know his name?" "Nope." "Recognize anybody else in the dead man's party as one of your regular passengers?" "Seems to me I saw another man, a weak little guy, gray-haired sort of. I've seen him come on pretty steady with the guy that was bumped off." "Do you know his name?" "Can't see I do." "Nope." Thumb stared at the ceiling. "Watch yourself now, Wood. This is important. I want to be absolutely sure. This bunch got on at 8th, you say. You closed the door. All right, now, did anybody get on or off after 8th? "No, Chief. We were full up, and I didn't open the doors even at the corner of 8th Avenue, so nobody got on. And no one got off either at my end. Goes without saying. Don't know about the front. Guinness, my partner, probably knows about that. He's the motor man." Thumb singled out of the crowd the broad-shouldered Irish motorman. Guinness, number 409, said that he had worked on the line for 8 years. No, he had never seen the dead man before, he thought. But then he added, "I ain't in as good a spot as Charlie here to notice passengers." "You're sure about that?" "Well, I guess maybe." His face looked a little familiar at that. "Did anyone get off the front after 8th Avenue? Didn't even open the doors. You know the line, Inspector. Most every passenger on the crosstown heads for the terminal to take the ferry over to Jersey. All business places along there, and then Sergeant Duffy can tell you. He rode front with me. Going off duty, hey, Sergeant? Lucky he was on the car at that. Thumb scowled, but it was a scowl of pleasure. Then, boys, the doors weren't open. Back or front after 8th Avenue. That's right, replied Guinness and Wood. Fine, stand by. The inspector turned away and began to question other passengers. No one, it seemed, had seen anything slipped into Longstreet's pocket or anything else of a suspicious nature. 2 passengers offered vague statements, but their conjectures were so obviously the result of heated imaginations that Thum turned away in disgust. He ordered Detective Jonas to take the names and addresses of all present. At this moment, Lieutenant Peabody panted into the general room under the burden of a burlap bag full of debris. Debris. Any luck, Lieutenant? Asked Thum. Just junk. Take a look. He dumped the contents of the bag to the floor. Scraps of paper, torn dirty newspapers, empty cigarette packets, the grimy stub of a leadless pencil, burnt matches, half a bar of squashed chocolate, 2 ragged timetables, the usual accumulation. Not a trace of cork or needles, or articles in any way connected with cork or needles. We went over that car and the cordon roots with a fine comb, Inspector, dry as a bone. Whatever this bunch had on 'em when they left, the car is still on 'em. Thumb's gray eyes glinted. He was the most widely publicized inspector in the New York Police Department. He had fought his way up from the ranks quite literally by the easy spring of his muscles. His well-developed reflexes, the common sense in his brain, and the unmistakable authority in his voice. He was a stubborn master of police routine, a man of action. Only one thing to do, he said, working his jaws slightly. Search every son of a gun in this room. You're looking for cork, needles, anything that's out of place or out of character, and if anybody squawks, paste him one. Get busy. Lieutenant Peabody grinned, went out of the room, returned in a moment with 6 detectives and 2 police matrons, jumped on a bench and shouted, "Line up, everybody, women on one side, men on the other. No arguments. The quicker you are, the quicker you'll get home." For 15 minutes, Inspector Thum leaned against a wall, a cigarette in his mouth, watching a scene that had more humorous aspects than serious. Women ranted in shrill voices as the muscular hands of the matrons passed interpersonally over them, turning out their pockets, exploring their purses, digging into the linings of their hats and the soles of their shoes. Men submitted with better grace, but sheepishly, as each individual was released. Detective Jonas jotted down name, business address, and home address. Occasionally, Inspector Thumb's eyes drilled into the faces of those passing out, searching, questioning. One man the inspector halted peremptorily after he had passed Jonas. This man, a small, pale, clerkish fellow, was wearing a faded-over garment. The inspector motioned him to step aside and take it off. It was a tan gabardine trench coat. The man's lips were blue with fear. Thum explored every crevice of the coat, returned it to the owner without a word, and the man skipped out of the room in an ecstasy of relief. The room emptied rapidly. Nothing doing, Inspector? Peabody was dejected. Search the room. Peabody and his men now swept up the debris of the general room, poked in the corners and under the benches. Thumb straddled the pile of rubbish from the burlap bag, knelt and prodded it with his finger. Then he looked at Peabody, shrugged, and left the room quickly. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. Is the next scene really short? Okay, sure. Scene 6. The Hamlet, Tuesday, September 8th, 11:20 a.m. Please understand, Mr. Lane, interpolated District Attorney Bruno, at this point that Inspector Thum is giving you every possible detail, many of them such as sidelights on previous conversations we discovered subsequently. Most of them, in fact, we are not concerned with. They're unimportant. My dear Mr. Bruno, said Mr. Drury Lane, nothing is unimportant. How trite and how true that is. Nevertheless, an excellent account so far. He stirred in his great armchair, stretching his long legs before the fire. A moment, please, before you resume, Inspector. In the uneven light of the flames and despite the shadows, the two men saw him close his eyes peacefully. His hands were clasped lightly in his lap. No muscle moved in his pale, pleasant face. The silence of the traditional past descended on those high, dark walls in that chamber out of another age. From his dusky corner quasi, like an old parchment rustled, Bruno and Thum craned. The ancient hunchback was chuckling softly. They looked at each other only to start at the sound of Drury Lane's measured, flexible organ voice. Inspector Thum, he said, there is only one point so far in which I am not entirely clear. And what's that, Mr. Lane? The rain, according to your recital, commenced while the streetcar was between 7th and 8th Avenues. At the time the Longstreet party boarded the car at 8th Avenue, the windows, I believe you said, were tightly closed. You meant every window? Inspector Thum's ugly face went black. Of course, Mr. Lane. No question about it. Sergeant Duffy was positive. Admirable, Inspector. The rich voice purred on. And every window was tightly closed from that period on? Absolutely, Mr. Lane. In fact, it was raining harder when the car got to the barn than before. Those windows were closed every minute of the time after the storm broke. Better and better, Inspector. The deep-set eyes under their even gray brows sparkled. Please, continue.